In this program, I'm going to look at a Python program that makes a tkinter interface, and that interface is going to have an entry, or basically a text input, radio buttons, checkboxes, an option menu, sort of a drop-down list, and then overall the person's going to sort of order a salad from this. So let me just run it and you'll see what I mean. So the person gets to enter their name, Fred, pick a salad. Fred likes spring mix. What fixings does Fred want? Ham and peppers and carrots. And choose a dressing. Fred likes French. And then order the salad. So also a button. I forgot to say that. So then it just takes the information off the page, and then the salads, the base price is $3.50, and then there's 50 cents for each topping. So another $1.50 for 3 toppings, going up to $5. So that is the game. If you want this code, it could be found at this URL. And again, it's a tkinter program showing various types of user input. We bring in tkinter. I brought it in as tk, so all the tkinter stuff is going to be tk in front of it. Sort of obnoxious at first, and then it sort of reminds you what's tkinter and what's not tkinter, so it's got a use. I made it 900 by 600. That's the width, that's the height. And I gave it a title. Maybe I will keep it running. So that title was up here, Salad Works tkinter interface. That was the title of my root. So I made a frame. I called it the header frame, and it has gave it a width and a height and some padding, and put it up on the top. Propagate means don't stretch it or squeeze it to just fit the size, but give it its proper width and height. And I put a label on it that said Salad Works. So there it is. So that is my header frame. Then I move down into the name frame, and that's where the person enters their name. So here's me making the frame. Here's me making the label that just says enter your name. And then here is making a variable called username and connecting it to a variable, a tk string variable. And so this makes a connection between a variable, a regular Python program variable username, and something from the interface. So here I say that I'm going to have an entry, a tk.Entry. This is a place where the user can type text, and say that it corresponds to this username, which is a tk variable. So that's that connection between the programming variable and the interface, and put it on the page. So now I have a label and I have an entry. And I have sort of a name, a variable name for what the user enters. And you'll see that later where I'll do a get, and I will get the username from the interface. The next thing down is the lettuce, which is going to have radio buttons. So make the frame. 42 to 45 is just making the frame. 46 to 48 is making the label that just says choose a lettuce type. And then this is really 2 frames, just the same color, so it looks like it's one big frame, but I was using 2 frames just to sort of give me my vertical spacing and not having to worry about packing horizontally and vertically. I just made more frames, so a little bit of a cheat. So this is a second lettuce frame, and putting it on adding it to the interface. And then finally, I am making my radio buttons. So I have to figure out what my choices for my radio buttons are. And so I have an array for that, lettuce choices. And so I had iceberg, romaine, spring mix, and spinach. I have a variable, which is going to be the user's choice. And then I'm going to here loop over my lettuce choices. And for each individual choice, I'm going to make a radio button. Its parent is going to be lettuce frame 2. The text of the radio button is going to be let, which is iceberg, then romaine, etc. Give it some padding, give it a color, give it a font size. The variable is this user lettuce. And the value is the let again. So if I wanted what the user saw, the text and the value to be different, I could do that. But in this case, they are the same. So they're just going to, what I want them to see is romaine, and what I want to use behind the scenes is romaine. Those can be different if I so desire. Pack means like pack. There's like sort of pack and grid. I'm working with pack. So that means to put it on the page. And then here I am setting the this variable to the second choice, which is romaine. So when it starts off, it is pre-selecting romaine. Okay, so now we get to the fixing frame. And again, this is really sort of 2 frames just to give me my two layers, 2 vertical layers to this. So I have a fixing frame 1, which is just the label. And then fixing frame 2 is where I'm going to have my checkboxes. Again, I will have my choices for my checkboxes. Checkboxes are a little trickier than radio buttons because the user can choose multiples. So we're going to have an array. What we get out of this is going to be an array. So that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. But the first, I should say a list. I'm in Python after all. So first list is just of the possible choices, and then which we know, and then the user choices we don't know. I'm looping over the choices. I was working from an example. I did give, again, you can download my code, and then I'm also giving some references of where I got some things. And I think they might have been using the index for something. So they enumerated the fixing choices, and they were doing something with their I, which I am not, but I had it in there. Okay. The variable, as we'll ultimately see in that we're going to get out of a checkbox, it's kind of like a Boolean. I'm going to work with it as an integer. So it's basically going to be 0 or 1. So I'm going to have an array of zeros and ones checked, and 0 for not checked, 1 for checked. So that's what I'm going to get out of this. And so in my loop, I am making a new integer variable. When I instantiate a new integer variable, it's going to be by default a 0. And then when I set it as the value of a checkbox, that checkbox will then be unchecked. And I am appending that variable to my user fixings. So now this is not an array of 0. This is an array of tkinter variables, which happen to have a value starting at 0. So this is not a simple list. It's a list of these variables that connect to the interface that happen to have values that we can get. Okay. So again, looping over the fixing choices, create a new variable, make a check button. Its parent is fixing frame 2. It's what it says is going to be the fix, which is going to be chicken and ham and peppers and what have you, some padding, a color, a font size, and then the variable is going to be that that tk variable that we just declared, but we're also going to append that to our list of variables. Okay. And then, so now that was the fixings. Now I'm at the dressing. I'm just trying to do this demo of showing you all these different kinds of interface in one program. So this one is going to be the dressing frame. So I have the dressing frame and its label, frame 1, and I did frame 2. This doesn't take up as much real estate, so I probably should have put it up on the same level, but I did what I did. So dressing frame 2, and now here we are making the drop down, or the option menu, I think they call it in tkinter. So we have, again, our choices: balsamic vinaigrette, Caesar, Italian. I have a variable which will be a tkinter variable, which will be the choice. So whatever variable they choose, I am choosing for them in the beginning the first choice, balsamic vinaigrette. And then we're making an option menu. Its parent is dressing frame 2, so that's where it's going to be placed on the interface. The variable associated with it is user dressing, and then the choices in the option menu is put an asterisk in front, the dressing choices. Put it on the page. So there's the dressing on the page. Then we are going to, the next frame is for buttons, so button frame. And then I want to, before I add a button, I'm going to define a function called by the button. But down here's the button, put it on the button frame, say order text, command. This is the code called by clicking the button. So I put that above. So we're going to scroll back up and look at that. Font and padding, put it on the page. So here is the order, and I'm going to create a string to represent my order. Start off with sort of an empty string, quote, quote. Here's me getting the username from the, I want to call it a text input. I think they call it an entry. And then I'm adding to my result the name and what I just got from the interface. And then I'm getting the lettuce again. So the name is a simple thing. The lettuce is a simple thing. The dressing is a simple thing. The fixings are what we have to work for. So the lettuce, just get the user lettuce and then add it to my display. Now I'm doing the fixings. So I just called it UF, user fixings, very short. Like user fixings spelled out, long-winded, is my array of TK, or my list, I should say, of TK variables, TK integer variables, which are going to be zeros and, well, they're more complicated than that, but ultimately they're values of those things that we get from the interface. So when we use the get from the interface, we're going to get zeros and ones. Okay, so my UF, this is what I'm actually going to end up putting on the page, but I'm looping over the user fixing. So I'm looping over all of them, and then I ask if they are selected or not. So fix is one of those user fixings associated with the check box. If I use its get, I'm getting its value effectively, but its value is sort of a Boolean, a true or a false, or I'm working actually with integers, so it's a 0 or a 1. So if it's 1, then it's checked, and then I'm going to work with so the fixing choices and the user fixings, those are sort of parallel arrays. So what I want are the words. So I get the words from fixing choices. I get so if as I'm looping through, if the tkinter variable get is 1, then I want the corresponding fixing choice appended to my UF, and then I'm using a join and UF and putting that into my order. My dressing is much easier than that. User dressing get, add it to my order. And then finally, the price, the base price for all my salads in this silly example is $3.50. And then I'm adding a 50 cents for all of the user fixings that they add. So I want the length of that array, the length of that list multiplied by 0.5 for 50 cents for each fixing. Just add to my display string the price with 2 decimal places. So format the price in this quote curly's colon dot 2f. So that's finally my 2 decimal places. Insert the price in there in this format, add it to my order, and then finally here I am putting my order onto the page. So I have something below, which I haven't shown you yet, called order label 2, and I am configuring it, and I'm changing its text to equal that order string that I just created. Here's just the order button with that function we just talked about as its command. So we're going to click the button. When the user clicks the button, we're going to call order. Last frame is the order frame. It has 2 labels. One label just says your order, it's boring, and the other one is order label 2, which starts off as just dash, 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 but that was the one in the order function that we are configuring the text of. So that's where the user's order will finally appear. So here it is as just dash, dash, dash. Grace wants spinach with cucumbers and chicken, and Caesar, and there it is. Grace, spinach, fixings are chicken and cucumbers, 2 fixings, that's another $1 to our base price of $3.50, so $4.50 with a dressing of Caesar. Right, that's what I wanted to show you, just this sort of demo piece, putting together a lot of different types of widgets you can use in a tkinter interface. Thanks for your attention.